What is up? What is up? Welcome to the premiere episode of the Etoft21sports show. My name is Erik, and I am the man behind Etoft21sports. You can find my work on Twitter at Etoft21, on Instagram at Etoft21sports _ and on TikTok at Etoft21. I've had people ask me, Erik, what are you trying to do with this Etoft21sports? During the football season, I would run two podcasts, one at the beginning of the week, one at the end of the week. And I would get all these questions. How'd you come up with a bet? How'd you come up with this fantasy football player? So I just thought it would be better if I could just do an interactive show where I'd be live at the beginning of the week. You guys could come in, ask me questions. I would have my boy Gino come on. Gino would tell you a horse racing bet before the fantasy football season. I would tell you a fantasy football player to target. And then I would have a guest come on, and we would talk about sports betting or what's going on in the sports world. Today, the first guest ever on the Etoft21sports show is my boy Sterling. Sterling is an OG of the Etoft21sports platform. He was one of the first guests I have ever had on my podcast, and he knows his stuff. Him and I are going to talk some NBA. I am really looking forward to this. I cannot wait to get this going. And we're going to start off with my boy Gino. Gino is going to be talking some horse racing, and he's going to tell you a bet to lock in. So let's bring Gino on the show, and Gino's going to tell you what horse race to target for tomorrow.
Well, I'd imagine most of you can see that I'm recording this on 4th of July because I'm excited for the new show every Tuesday for my buddy Erik, the Etoft21sports show that you can catch live on Twitch and on social media. So I'm going to be dipping in once in a while with some plays for you. I'll probably try to give you a play for Wednesday, so that way on Tuesday you can take a little time and figure out how you want to play Wednesday races. Let's go over to Indiana. It's a big week for them. Now they've got the Indiana Derby coming up on the weekend. I'm going to go for my play to race number 1. We'll get things started right off the bat. Won't take you a whole long time to find our play. It's going to be the number 5 in race number 1. Silver Moon Road, who's going to go first start off the claim for a barn that's very good first start off the claim. And I think this is just going to be a softer spot for Silver Moon Road, who's been running at Churchill and in Oaklawn Park against a lot tougher. He'll cut back from 6 to 5.5 furlongs. He should have a little bit more late punch on that cutback. I think he'll be forwardly placed. Love the race that you can see on the bottom of the page when he was at Los Alamitos when he sat third. If we can get a trip just like that, I think Silver Moon Road will give us a nice run for our money. Should be right in the mix throughout. If we can get anything around 7-2 or over, I think that's fair odds and fair value for Silver Moon Road. So hope everyone had a nice 4th of July, and we can move right on from the holiday. Let's get you a Wednesday winner over at Indiana. Good luck.
Sorry, technical difficulties first episode. So here's something you don't know about me and Gino. Gino, he's the reason I'm in all this. He messaged me asking if I could do some NFL draft stuff during the pandemic. That led to me doing more podcasts. That led to me coming on his podcast every week. That led to me doing a live stream show last year with NFL betting. And now I'm here. So if you guys don't like me, message Gino Bacala at Twitter, because he is the reason that I have started this whole crazy world. Now let's shift our attention. Let's look at a fantasy football player that we can target. This fantasy football player that I'm looking to target is someone that you can get in the 9th round. He has an ADP of 112, and he is the 42nd running back going off the board. And I truthfully feel he could be this year's James Conner, somebody that can lead you to a fantasy football championship. And that player is none other than James Cook from Georgia, who is drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Now, why do I like James Cook? We all know the system makes the player, not the player making the system. And the main reason is I just like the system. We need to remember the Bills hired Aaron Comer to be their new offensive line coach. And Comer is going to be changing the Bills from a power running game to a zone running game. I understand the Bills have Devin Singletary. I get it. Singletary was a beast last year for the last 5 games of the season when the Bills committed to the run game. But he's not a zone runner. Cook is. And with the Bills using high draft capital on Cook, it just suggests to me that Cook is going to be the starter. And he's in line for some huge production. If you just look since 2015, running backs that have ran behind a Comer line. 2015, LaShawn McCoy, 178 fantasy points. 2016, LaShawn McCoy, 299 fantasy points. 2017, he went over to the Rams. They had somebody by the name of Todd Gurley, 383 fantasy points. 2018, Todd Gurley, 372 fantasy point, average an absurd 26.6 fantasy points per game, most that season. Finished as RB3 because he only played 14 games. 2019, the Rams, Todd Gurley, 219, only played 14 games. That's when Gurley went on his decline. 2020, that's when the Rams had their three-headed monster of Akers, Brown, and Henderson. Add them all up, they scored 330. Malcolm Brown had the most with a $160. If you just add together the production of the top backs in the Comer system, that's 263.8 fantasy points per game. And then you also have to factor in the improvements the Bills made on the offensive line. They brought in Dave Quisenberry from the Titans, who was the 5th rated run blocker tackle per PFF, and Roger Scaffield, who was graded as the 13th best run blocking guard. I mean, that's huge improvements in the line. And with the change in offensive schemes, I really feel that James Cook is going to be a great guy to target, and he's going to be this year's James Conner, and he's going to lead you to a fantasy football title. So now this is the part of the show where we bring on a guest. And like I said, who better than the OG of Etoft21sports? Let's bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Sterling from Silver Star Sports. Sterling, how you doing, my man?
Oh, awesome. Excited to be here. Happy inaugural show to you.
Thanks, man. You know, you've been a big part of what I've done. I had to have you on for the first show, but dude, we need to talk some NBA. We only have a 30-minute window, and we have a lot to dive into.
Yes, we do.
The first thing we need to talk about is this whole Kevin Durant thing. Now, he demanded a trade at the end of the week. Now, this is the question I want to pose to you. If the Golden State Warriors didn't win a title, would Durant have demanded a trade?
You know, the answer to that question is yes, in my opinion. I think Kevin Durant, I think he cares about what people think. He tries not to let it bother him. He acts like he doesn't care about the Twitter trolls. But deep down, I think he does care. And I think the voices would have gotten too loud if they didn't win in Golden State with him, that he'd be looking for his next team to find an easier way to win if they didn't win. So.
Now, let's look at these trades. Now we need to remember, you know, we're going to be throwing out trades throughout this whole show. And there's been certain people, I won't say names, Bill Simmons and Mark Spears, that are doing tweets and podcasts and are naming trades that can't be made. So that this is the important rule. The NBA, teams are permitted to carry 2 players on a designated rookie extension, as the Nuggets have with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. However, a team cannot carry 2 designated rookies if both players were acquired via trade. What does that mean? The Nets have Ben Simmons. So if the Nets were to trade for any of these following players, Bam Adebayo, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, De'Aaron Fox, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Jason Tatum, Karl Anthony Towns, or Trae Young, Ben Simmons has to be included in the trade, or it has to be like, it has to be a third team.
Yeah, I think naming all those names you just mentioned, those are a lot of players that the Nets would want if they could have them, if they didn't have Ben Simmons on the team. So I think this KD trade is going to be a drawn-out process, where it's not going to be something that happens in the next couple of weeks. I think it might have to be a 3-team deal, just because there's a lot of moving parts to this deal.
Now, you mentioned a 3-team deal. So let's start off with my 3-team deal and tell me what you think. I think what the Nets need to do is they need to be able to get something that kind of keeps them relevant, kind of keeps them between the 6 and 10 in the East. Because if they dip below the 10 and they go in the lottery, all those unprotected picks go to the Rockets, and they don't want to be part of the Rockets building. They need to think of themselves, so they need to keep their team competitive. So this is my first proposal. I don't like it as better as the second one. And my boy Brandon is gonna love the second one because he's a huge Celtics fan.
Okay.
My first trade is this. The Nets is a 3-teamer. Nets get Donovan Mitchell,
Okay.
Bridges, Cameron Johnson, and picks. Jazz get Ben Simmons, DeAndre Ayton, pretty young core they can start their rebuild around. And the Suns get Kevin Durant. What do you think about that?
Okay. I think for the Jazz to give up their franchise cornerstone right now and Mitchell, they're going to need a little bit more than that. But the idea is right. I think.
So I mean, like throwing some more picks, throwing some role players. I mean, yeah,
I like it.
I'll give you that.
Start.
I mean, I should do the Brian Windhurst when he was doing like this, like when he was
What's going on in Utah? Yeah.
What's going on in Utah? And I'll give Winnie credit. The dramatic effects he had when he was telling that story were top notch. Top notch. I mean, you could tell that guy managed in theater wherever he went to. Now you got some very interesting trades. Let's hear your first trade, my man.
All right, let me pull up this first trade we got here. So the first trade I have is Kevin Durant going to an unlikely team in the New Orleans Pelicans. And the deal would be Brandon Ingram, Devontae Graham, 2 first-round picks in 2023 and 2025, all for Kevin Durant. And I like this trade because Kevin Durant goes to a young, budding team. He'd still get the credit for being the star, taking them to a title. I think people would respect that if he did it with a franchise like New Orleans. And then for the Nets, I think getting a player like Brandon Ingram would be the perfect for them. They still stay relevant. They get a young superstar. They get to build around him, and they get some future assets with some draft picks.
I mean, people may disagree with this, but in that Suns Pelican series, I thought Ingram was the best player on the court.
He's an underrated player.
I mean, I wish the Pistons went onto him, and I apologize, dude. For those who don't know, anytime Sterling comes on my show, he always rocks a phenomenal jersey. You got the old school KD.
Yeah, under KD. You've been liking the jerseys recently, so I had to rep some.
You know what? You've had a Sonics. I think you had a Magic one week. You had an old school LT from the Chargers. So your jersey game's been on point. I just have a CMU. I just have an old school CMU long sleeve on.
Wow.
I need to pick up my game. I love this trade, and you got Ingram. Ingram, I think he's phenomenal. I think he's on the path. He's still only like 23 years old. Like I said, he was the best player I felt on the court for the Suns Pelican series. You get him in there, and you got yourself a team that's going to be battling like for the 7th to 10. I feel so. I like this move. The one thing about it though is can Zion stay healthy? If Zion stays healthy, and you got KD, Herb Jones, Valanciunas, CJ McCollum, that's a legit roster that the Pelicans are rolling out there.
Yeah. With Zion's contract, the Pelicans are betting that he can stay healthy. I'm not so sure yet, but I guess we'll wait and see next year what he looks like.
I mean, I've seen some pictures online, and he looks cut. So if that's what he looks like, hey, I'm all for it. I really hope, that guy gets it together, because he was, when
he's on the court, he's amazing.
When he's on the court, he's balling out of control. Now, I don't know if Brandon has a bug in my computer or what, but my trade was this. Boom. And I think this is the best trade they can do. Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and picks for KD.
Okay. Just digesting that now. I don't think for the Celtics, I don't know how much I'd be willing to tamper with a team that was 2 games away from winning it all. But if I'm the Nets, I do like that deal, because you get a young superstar to build around. You get a winning veteran that's going to contribute to whatever guys come in, build a good culture there. And then you also get future picks. But yeah, I'm just concerned for the Celtics a little bit.
I mean, I kind of feel like this. Anytime you have an opportunity, like if they got KD and you have KD, Tatum, like those two.
Oh, from a pure talent perspective.
You know what I mean? And if Durant can stay healthy, which is a big if because he is getting older in age, I That's a huge move for the Celtics. You have one more, and I found this one very, very, very interesting. You have KD going to the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, KD going to the Chicago Bulls, and the package would be Zach LaVine and Patrick Williams, and then 2 first-round picks. The idea behind it, this one would have to take place in about a month or so since Zach LaVine just re-signed. But Zach LaVine, young budding all-star. You got Patrick Williams, who was the number 4 overall pick just a few years ago. And then you get 2 picks to rebuild your future with. I think that's a pretty good deal, especially that's better than Tyler Harrow and Duncan Robinson and like other stuff people could offer.
Did I ever tell you the Duncan Robinson story?
No.
So Duncan was doing his thing, balling out in the bubble, like just balling out in the bubble. Then they opened it up where you're allowed to bring a friend, a family member, whatever. So they're playing in the finals. That's when it happened in the finals. Duncan's at the cafeteria. He's got one of his boys in town. You know, him and his boys sat down. LeBron walks by. LeBron just goes, "What's up, Dunk?" And just walks right by. You know, Duncan didn't think anything of it, just kind of gave him the nod. After that, Duncan's never been the same because his buddy goes, "Dude, LeBron knows who you are." So after that moment, and that just shows you how mentally hard this game is, because he was zoning. He couldn't shoot. He couldn't miss, excuse me. Now he can't hit a bucket, and the Heat are stuck with this absurd contract.
He's almost unplayable now.
I know, for Duncan Robinson, which is crazy. One of the rumors that we're hearing, one of the teams is the Raptors. Now, the Nets are saying you have to include Scotty Barnes. The Raptors are saying we're not parting with Scotty Barnes. I don't know what Scotty Barnes is going to be, but I do know what Kevin Durant's going to be for the next 3 years. If I trade for Kevin Durant, and let's say I trade Scotty Barnes and I'll go OG Anunoby and some picks, and I have Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, and KD. Right now, with how the East is structured, that's good enough, I feel, to compete in the East. Why wouldn't you do that if you're the Raptors? Is Scotty Barnes just something I'm not seeing?
Scotty Barnes is an insane talent, but I'd definitely make this deal 10 times out of 10 if I'm Toronto. One championship is worth it at the end of the day. And that core of Siakam, Durant, VanVleet, that's going to get you a chip, or it's going to be very close to it. I think teams get so hesitant with what they could have that they forget that what they can have right now, you know, sometimes. But yeah, no, I've definitely think Toronto has one of the best packages they can put together between OG Anunoby, Barnes, there's Siakam if they wanted him. There's also Gary Trent, just lots of different pieces. So they're a team definitely to watch and pay attention to over the next few weeks.
And they already did that. They already did the 1 year, you know, give us Kawhi.
Yeah,
so it's just one of those things, man. If you have an opportunity, and the Thunder showed us when they had Durant, had Westbrook, had Ibaka, had Arden, and everyone thought they're going to be back for years, your window to win in this league can close very dramatically.
It looks like it'll be for a long part of time, and then it just slowly closes. Injuries, you never know what happens.
So we do have a question now. This one is a little bit off script. How do you feel about Serge Ibaka coming back to the Bucks? Do you feel that's a game changer?
I mean, veteran leadership always helps. Whether locker room peasants knock down some shots, it's always a good move.
Yeah, it's always good to have Serge. I mean, granted, he didn't play at all during the playoffs, but, you know, having Serge in there can definitely help them for the Bucks. The next thing we need to talk about is what I heard. Now, this would be an ultimate game changer, is that Curry, Clay, and Dre had a meeting, and they are totally fine with Durant coming back to the Bay and reforming that four.
Okay, this is news to me. I haven't heard this. Wow.
You know what? I got the call like at 8:45, you know, Central Time. Decided I'd break it here. This is interesting. This is really, really interesting for a couple things. Number one, do you feel that I know the guys in the locker room don't care because they're all about winning. How do you feel the fans would accept KD?
I think based on what Katie said, or based on what Draymond recently said, that they needed KD to win the title recently. I don't know if you saw that on JJ Redick's podcast. I think how Warriors fans took that shows that they wouldn't be necessarily welcoming to KD, which I think KD knows that, you know.
I'll never forget KD got sensitive because he felt they were cheering for Mo Spates more than him. If you read the KD book, which was absolutely hilarious, if you ask me. I think if I'm the Warriors, I look at it like this. The Warriors have 4-8. If they want to be in the discussion with like the Bulls legacy, what the Chicago Bulls did, this is a move they have to do. Because I'll be honest, I've said it. You know, you've heard me. I like Kuminga. Mooney, I think, can get some buckets. I think the ceiling for Jordan Poole is 6-man, and Wiseman can't stay healthy.
Yeah, I think people tend to overrate the Warriors core. And I mean, if you could trade all that for KD, that's 1, 2, maybe even 3 championships if they all stay healthy. Like, I don't know. It was the most beautiful basketball we'd ever seen when KD was on the Warriors. So if they can get that again, where they're all wiser, all more mentally tough, having gone through so much stuff, yeah, that's a no-brainer deal for the Warriors. And they also have a good package they could put together. So,
I mean, it's an insane package, a young package. I mean, granted, you don't know again with Wiseman. I feel like this is going to be the highest Poole has ever valued. I'm not high on Jordan Poole. Kaminga, I think, is going to be a star in the league, and Mooney's going to be like, oh my God, Katino Mobley. You know, just a bucket getter, someone that can just get buckets.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Just someone that can get buckets. I mean, I think this is a great trade for them, but I don't know. I don't know if they'll do it. You know what I mean? I think if the Warriors want to truly max out this window they have to do this. And I think they'd be foolish not to, because if you have a chance to get Durant, you have to do it. Am I wrong?
Oh, agreed. Top 3 player at worst in the NBA right now.
Yeah, and you'll have a 3-year window, and then you can just move on, because God only knows what you're going to get from those 4 that I mentioned. So if you're the Warriors, I feel you have to pull the trigger, and you have to do this. You know, we're talking about don't be hating on DeAndre Ayton. Do you find it weird he hasn't signed an offer sheet yet? Doesn't that kind of make you think like something's kind of in the works in the background?
Yeah, like what is he, 23, 24-year-old center, 17-10, super young, good contract. He could get I'm confused. I don't know if it's because we're waiting for the KD domino to fall, or if there's something behind the scenes that we're not privy to. So super interesting.
Yeah, that's something I found very, 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 very weird. Brandon hinted on it a little bit earlier in the chat about his Celtics. They made an absolute huge move, and they gave up very, 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 very little to get Brogdon. What was your initial reaction to this move?
Slam dunk. That's how good teams get better. They took their scraps, and they're really none of those players were playing like super valuable minutes for them. Daniel Tice, occasional backup center minutes, but really like they took nothing, were able to turn it into a valuable guard and a valuable piece that they need. And also getting Gallinari for virtually nothing. I think the Celtics brought in 2 really good pieces, and their outlook looks a lot better moving forward.
Now, my boy Bobby just put this in the chat. What do you think about this? NBA DOA if KD goes to the Warriors.
You know, I want to see KD go. Oh, I don't want to see it because I like parity in basketball. But I think it would be super interesting just to see the NBA world digest that a second time.
Because I really feel that's why people kind of hated KD. I feel like he was like this light guy in Oklahoma, and then he went to Golden State, which basically just made it, hey, NBA starting. We know it's going to be the Warriors and the Cavs in the finals. What's the point of watching?
Yeah.
So
this jersey of Kevin Durant, he was the most liked player in the NBA. You remember your mom, or talking about his mom, you're the real MVP. People loved him back then. And then once he went to the Warriors,
it was just gone. So yeah, that's a good point by Bobby. I really think that would make actually people hate him more if he went. But the one thing is this, I really feel like Curry, to backtrack real quick before then we'll get back to the Celtics talk. For Curry, 1-1 without him. Now I feel the pressure's on Durant to win one without Curry. So that's why I think if this is on the board, KD don't want it.
Yeah, I think KD's legacy matters too much to him. Like I was saying earlier, he just cares about what people think. I know at the end of the day, he tries not to, but he really does.
Now, we need to talk about this Brogdon thing. Now, this is my issue with Brogdon. Don't get me wrong. I loved him when he was at the Bucks, and I was so pissed when the Bucks took Bledsoe over him. But just listen to this, my friend. He missed 46 games last year, 16 2 years ago, 18 3 years ago, 18 4 years ago, 34 5 years ago, 7 6 years ago. He's averaging missing 23 games a year. Is he going to be able to stay healthy for the Celtics? I think that's the big thing.
Certainly. Health is definitely a concern, but if he's missing 23 games a year, as long as he's healthy for that playoff run, Celtics get a true guard that can set up the offense and can defend both ways. And he's not too far removed from a 50, 40, 90 season just a couple of seasons ago. So.
Yeah, and I really feel like we can talk about like the officiating and the Celtics not being able to score, but I really feel the turning point in that series was Game 5 at the end of the third quarter, when that is when they kind of needed a point guard. Tatum initiated the offense way too soon, kicked it to Brown. Brown put up a shot with I think 5-6 seconds left. Rebound by the Warriors, kick out, 3 by Poole, and then it just kind of was down after that. So I really feel that was kind of like not having a point guard. And we even saw it in Game 7 against the Heat with the shot selection that the Celtics were having. Not having a point guard really hurt him. And Brogdon, on the cheap, I really feel could help them, like you said, if he can stay healthy. Now, one of the craziest trades was Rudy Gobert to the Timberwolves. Now, listen to this. The Timberwolves gave up not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 first-round picks to get Rudy Gobert, plus this year's first-round pick in Wade Kessler. So basically 5 first-round picks, plus Patrick Beverley and Mikael Beasley. My question to you is this. What was the offer they were competing with?
I don't know. I'd love to see it because this was certainly a head-scratching move when the reports came out on how much they gave up. You see, I read more about it, and the Timberwolves front office felt like they had to make a move with how the West was shaping up. But that doesn't make any sense to me because what's the rush? Anthony Edwards is super young. Cat's still young. Your core is just building. You just had some success. No need to expedite this process. Like, what are you waiting?
It makes zero sense why you would do that. It makes absolutely zero sense. And also, let's not forget, during the series against the Mavericks, when the Mavericks run really small, Gobert was a lost puppy out there. You really can't even play him in the playoffs when a team goes small. That's why I don't understand this.
Yeah, the goal of every NBA team should be to raise manners and win championships, not to win the Northwest Division and maybe get bounced in the second round. You know?
Win the Northwest Division.
Are they really going to enjoy having Cat chuck 7 threes a game now that he's playing power forward, or having him get caught in a pick and roll against like Curry or somebody or like John Morant? You know, so I don't know.
To me, this has disaster written all over it. Fun fact, there's been 3 centers that have signed the Super Max. Timberwolves have 2 of them on their roster. I mean, just let that sit in. They have 2 players in a dying position in the NBA, and they have them on their roster. Way to go, Minnesota. And I've said it with you before. I really think that Minnesota needs to just build around Anthony Edwards and let Cat just go on his merry way.
He's a star in the making for sure.
I mean, dude, this kid is a stud, an absolute stud. Now, we need to touch on, we're up against the clock. We need to touch on the Kyrie Irving situation here. Important to know about the Kyrie Irving thing. He had an opt-in. Nets go, hey, go find a sign and trade. He went to every single team in the NBA, and they all passed on him. They all passed. Nobody wanted Kyrie Irving in the room. No one wanted him in the locker room. So because of that, he opted into that big contract. I mean, do you think is this just a done deal? He's going to LA with a trade with Westbrook?
I don't know. I don't think that benefits the Nets necessarily. I think I see a world where the Nets just run it back next year. They say KD's under contract for 4 more years. Kyrie, he already opted in. We're not going to get. We'd rather keep him and play him than get negative assets for him. So let's just run it back.
I if you look at the lay of the land, if the Suns are going to have to give up all their depth with Bridges, Johnson, I mean, an aging Chris Paul, Devin Booker, who what people have told me was distracted as hell dating Kendall. Was he dating Kendall Jenner? He was distracted as hell this year with all the stuff he was doing with her. Is that his best chance to win with how deep the West is? Or is it like, staying and running it back? Because you have Joe Harris, you have Seth Curry, you have Kyrie. I really think that would be a better option if he legitimately wants to run it back. Because the East, I mean, besides Boston and Milwaukee, who really is there?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't trust Philadelphia. I don't trust Miami. So maybe he does run it back, but I think he's going to go. I like the trade with Boston. I think Boston should pull the trigger and send Jaylen Brown. Next one. Does John Wall make the Clippers a contender?
No. If it was Wizards, John Wall for sure. But considering we haven't seen him play in so long, I don't see him as a contender. He can be a valuable contributor though, but not a contender.
And we need to remember Reggie Jackson was a huge part of what the Clippers did. Like, are you gonna have Jackson come off the bench now? Are you gonna have Wall come off the bench now? I don't know. You made a good point. It's not Wizards John Wall. This is Rockets John Wall that hasn't played in over 15 months. So I really don't think we're gonna expect that much from him. And I don't think this does anything for the Clippers. The Clippers need Leonard to be healthy for them to have any chance to compete in my eyes.
They also lost Isaiah Hardenstein, who was one of the best backup bigs in the NBA. So.
Yeah, I think this does nothing for the Clippers. Then we need a last trade we're going to touch on, the trade that kind of touched it all. I'm sure we have differing opinions on this one just because that's the way I am. Murray from the Spurs being traded to the Atlanta Hawks. What do you think about this trade, my friend?
This one's an interesting one because I'm a big DeJounte Murray fan. I love his two-way ability. Can rebound, can defend, can do a little bit of everything. From a pure talent perspective, I like it for the Hawks because you have two guards that are all-stars that are under 25. So that's great. And they didn't have to give up a ton of player assets for them. They had to give up a lot of picks, though. But I'm kind of jury's out until I see them play because Trae Young, he's like a top 5 offense in himself. And now the goal is to get him off the ball more. But they also got rid of Kevin Huerter, who was like their shooter. So I just got to see how it works together. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
My thoughts is this. I think it's great on the defensive end because it allows the Hawks and Nate McMillan to hide Trae Young. And yes, Bobby, I do hate Trae Young. I can't stand that guy at all. And I don't think this is going to work. And the reason I don't think this is going to work is I don't think Trae is mature enough to realize that he has to play off the ball for this to work. I don't think he's going to be able to play off the ball. I think he's too selfish of a player. I don't like it at all. I think this move is going to hurt the Hawks as crazy as it sounds. And there's rumors they're going to move John Collins too. And maybe even Bogey. I loved Bogey. I think Bogey is great for them. I think if you're a championship team, like if the Nets can put together a deal for Bogey to keep Durant and Irving there, or if my Bucks could make a move, I think having Bogey on your team is great for a championship team. I just don't like this move for the Hawks. I think this really doesn't do anything for them, and they're still going to be stuck in that 5th to 7th range in the East.
Yeah, it felt like a move that a contender would make, and the Hawks aren't there. So.
I agree with that. I think the player that it's going to hurt the most is DeAndre Hunter. I think for DeAndre to really get what he needs to get to, he needs opportunity to have the offense run through him. And when you bring in someone that needs the ball, I just don't think it's going to work. Last one, let's just touch on it. Brunson to the Knicks. My thoughts on this are simple. 4 years, 110 for Jalen Brunson. You're bringing in a player who's left-handed when you already have RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, who basically do the same thing as Jalen Brunson. I'm just not a fan of this.
Yeah, I don't. It seems like the Knicks like got rid of some stuff. Like they didn't draft Jalen Duren, or they gave that pick away, in an effort to clear cap space for Jalen Brunson, who's a good player, but I don't know. Like they were just going after it way too hard, and I don't think he's really going to elevate their team to any new level.
Sterling, I'd like to thank you for coming on, being the first guest ever on the Etoft21 Sports Show. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, find me. I'm on Instagram at silverstar_sports. That's silverstar_sports. Kind of been dead on posting recently, but I got a lot of new content coming. Just finishing up making some graphics for the NFL season. Got season previews, award predictions, lots of stuff coming. Excited to be a guest on the show. If you'll have me some more, so super happy to be a part of it.
Dude, you will always be one of my first calls, if not probably the first one to be on this. So thank you for coming on. I'd like to thank Gino for sending in the horse racing bet for tomorrow, Indiana Grand. And most importantly, I'd like to thank everyone who is active in the chat room. Dave, Brandon, Missy, Brittany, everyone for being active. Same time, same channel next week. I'll talk to you then, boys and girls.